Welcome to 38 Weeks to Go. I am your host Nash, and today we're going to go over Game Week 5. As I record this, the Forest vs Burnley game is still going on. It's 1-1, and it's Awoniyi assist to Callum Hudson-Odoi. For Burnley, Amdouni scored off a Lyle Foster assist. There were a few themes I noticed. Let me just go over them briefly. 1. International break really affected teams with South American players. For the teams in Europe, they really changed their lineups to plan for the midweek games. There was a late flurry of goals. Goals scored after the 90th minute. So there were a lot of games at 90, 1-0, 0-0, something like that. And then a flurry of goals just come in. So, let's start at the beginning. Liverpool against Wolves. Football is a game of two halves, and Wolves were so dominant in the first half. It was hard to believe that there was the same team that came out in the second half. Liverpool are comeback kings. If they go down 1, that's not enough. They have more than you can believe in the tank. Wolves played like they did against Man U. 3-1 is a very harsh scoreline. They could have and deserved to score more than one goal. But football isn't a sport that rewards what shoulda, coulda, woulda. It just matters whether you score or whether you don't. That's it. Trent was injured and did not start this game. They started Kwanzaa for Van Dijk and Gomez as right back. And they struggled a bit to get things going, especially in the first half. Neto gave an assist to Hwang for the early goal, and that's how they scored. Wolves, that is. Cunha missed a chance, and they were really dangerous. Wolves were dangerous. They could have scored more. Second half was a totally different game. Salah had 2 assists and was immense in terms of how he contributed to Liverpool winning. He's really carrying that team right now. I'm really doing the mental mathematics of how do I fit him plus Haaland, and who do I sacrifice in my midfield to get him, because it is clear that that man is just points. Once I figure that out, he will be making it into my team. Liverpool seem to be a team that have recovered from their down season last year, and they will be challenging. They have the fight, the drive, and the hunger once again. Gakpo scored the first goal. Robertson scored the second. Harvey Elliott had an assist for the last one, and it was an own goal. It was deflected in. Robertson got the bonus, 3, Salah 2, and Gakpo 1. Moving on to Man U vs Brighton. I won't lie, once I saw the Brighton lineup, I thought Man U had a really good chance of winning this game. They hadn't beaten them in 4 games, but the lineup for Brighton was a bit weak in my view. Brighton had made 6 changes from the last game. I thought this was the kind of game that Man U would use to bounce back, but goodness, this was just the kind of game that buried them even further down. It has got them questioning everything. Is Onana a good player? Is Ten Hag a good manager? Is Casemiro a good player? I've heard all sorts of things this weekend. Random fact, Fabian Gross has scored 7 goals against Man U now. So basically, when Brighton and Man U are playing, choose Gross. He will randomly show up with a goal. For us holders of Estupinian, he did not play. For those who had let go of João Pedro, I'm so sorry. That must have hurt. Brighton were the superior team, however you want to look at it. They were just the better team. Welbeck scored, Gross scored the second, and João Pedro wrapped it up before Hannibal Mejbri scored for Man U. He was very excited. Estupinian did not make it. I'm not sure if he was injured or if it's just that whole South America trip. And his place was Lamptey, who came in and had 2 assists. He was very positive. Adingra looks like another good choice, another good youth player that Brighton have. I'm just hoping Chelsea don't buy him for 100 million. On the Man U side, Rashford looked dangerous but selfish. He didn't seem to make good decisions. He was unlucky with the one where the ball went out, but overall, he seemed to be their most dangerous player. Bruno Fernandes left his form back in Luxembourg. Ten Hag got booed once he removed Højlund. It seems that maybe the fans are giving up on him slowly. Gross had 3 bonus points. João Pedro had 2 and Welbeck had 1. On Welbeck, unpopular opinion, but I'm really happy that he celebrated the way he did. I'm really bored of these fake not celebrating moments, and I'm happy he did not fake celebrate, or rather fake sorry for scoring. He was happy, and you would never have known he played for Man U. Moving on to Man City versus West Ham. This game, so Pep back in the bench. It's good to see him back. He seems fine. At this point in the match day, I was panicking because it was a tough game. West Ham scored through James Ward-Prowse, and they scored out of nothing. I was scared that it was going to be another Brighton-West Ham game, but Man City are better than Brighton, and they showed why they're champions. They just have quality. Jeremy Doku was scintillating. That man runs at people and they do not know what to do. I read somewhere that Pep is looking to sign players that can carry the ball. If you watch Jeremy Doku, you will understand exactly what that statement means. When that man has the ball, it doesn't matter where he is, he's gaining yards. Haaland really stressed me this weekend. That guy could have had 4 goals. He had 1, but he really missed chances. He was a little off, or Areola was also really good. Let me not take that away from him. He was good. I regret having him as my keeper on the bench. I had Edison. The problem with having a Man City goalkeeper is that they don't get tested too much, and therefore they never really score many points unless they save a penalty. Areola, on the other hand, was really tested. He made 9 saves. In this league where goalkeepers don't seem to be keeping clean sheets, it might be more important to choose a keeper who makes many saves. I brought in Alvarez into my team, and for those of you who did the same, you must be happy. He had 2 assists and a bonus point. Doku, Bernardo, and Haaland scored for Man City. Kufal had the assist for James Ward-Prowse's goal for West Ham. Alvarez had 2 assists and Bernardo had 1. Bernardo had all the bonus points, Doku had 2 bonus points, and Alvarez had 1. Man City maintain a 100% record. Crystal Palace versus Villa. If you have been listening to this podcast for some time now, you know that I've shared my theory with you, which is Aston Villa can't beat a top 6 side, but can beat pretty much anybody who is below them. For the longest time, this game was 1-0, and I was regretting having Anderson at the end of my bench. Mateta had an assist for Edouard to score his 4th goal of the season. Edouard is really surprising me. 4 goals, I hadn't really seen that coming. He snuck up on us. And Mateta might end up being an underrated creator for that team. Around the 87th minute, it's like the game just opened up again. Mr. John Duran, the Colombian, scored a wonderful goal. For all of you that still have Ollie Watkins, I'm so sorry. His substitute just seems to be making him look so bad. Watkins at this point should probably be their Europe scorer, their European striker, and John Duran becomes their Premier League striker. Digne had an assist, and Matty Cash was so dangerous the whole game. If you have him, don't let him go. That man, he had 2 missed goals, and if he ends up in those positions again, I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't end up as the 2nd or 3rd top scorer. So from 1-0 at the 87th minute to 3-1, I went from being very sad that Anderson was the last player on my bench to being very happy that he was the last player of my bench. I was even feeling like a genius. And then the commentator unleashed a stat like, Villa haven't been beaten by Crystal Palace in the last 27 games. Something crazy like they've beaten them 3 out of the 27 games they've played. At Villa's home, that is. Duran, Douglas Luiz, and Bailey scored for Aston Villa. Assists coming through Digne, Watkins, and Diaby. Diaby was also very dangerous in that game. The crazy thing about that game is, before Aston Villa scored, as they had chances to score, Crystal Palace looked like they only needed 1 more goal to just seal this game off. And then they just lost everything. If you're looking to get into Aston Villa players, Bailey and the wing-backs Indigne and Matty Cash are looking very good. Of course, Diaby as well. Those would be the 4 I recommend from there. From Crystal Palace, Edouard and Mateta, they are solid. Douglas Luiz had the bonus with 3, Edouard had 2, and Duran had 1. Another random fact. Liverpool hadn't won a lunchtime game for 6 of their last 7 outings. So this was breaking some sort of lunchtime day curse. Moving on to Newcastle versus Brentford. Like I had said previously, Newcastle have been beating Brentford. The commentator said Brentford haven't beaten Newcastle at Newcastle since like 1937. 1937, guys. This was a pretty even game. It could have easily ended 0-0. There was a penalty. Callum Wilson scored. Newcastle had changed their lineup, and it's clear that they were looking at the midweek fixture with Milan. They got away with the victory, but I would advise managers to beware of Europe and the effect on Newcastle. Newcastle don't seem to have the depth. They don't seem to be able to challenge on both fronts effectively, and there'll be an opportunity to take advantage of that. For those of you who have Isak, I'm sorry. You know he didn't do anything. Bomo, owners, sorry to you as well. For me, I was very happy because I let him rest, and I brought on Mitoma. Not that that changed anything, but yeah. In terms of bonus, the Newcastle defenders really brought home the bacon. Botman had 3, Trippier had 2, and Schär had 1. I guess it goes to show you that Brentford did their best, and Newcastle players did their job. This kind of game doesn't really say anything about these two teams. My opinions of them haven't changed, and I don't think it should for you either. Except, maybe it's time to think of Newcastle defenders. Moving on to Luton versus Fulham. I thought Luton would be whipped. They lost, but they weren't whipped. They showed more fight than I had anticipated from them, and they had a better showing of themselves, and it was a kind of performance they should be proud of. They had the better chances, and if they were a better team, they would have defeated Fulham. However, football doesn't reward the better team. It just rewards a team that scores. And that's what Fulham did. They managed to get a goal and keep a clean sheet. They won 1-0. It was a boring game, a boring performance from Fulham, but I'm sure they'll just be happy to get those 3 points. Joao Paulinho is back, the man who makes the most tackles in the Premier League, and he continued. He has a new contract, and maybe that will keep him happy until January. The only goal of the game was scored by Vinicius, and the assist was by Willian. Castagne got the 3 bonus points, Ream got 2 points, and Vinicius also got 2 points. I would say if you're looking to invest in Fulham players, hold on. There's just something a bit off with them right now. Moving on to what I consider the heart stopper, the nail biter game of the weekend. Tottenham versus Sheffield United. So, if you listen to the last episode, I sat here and sang Son's praises like he was my son. But however, in the same breath, I said that Sheffield showed Man City a lot of trouble. And I had previously predicted Haaland to score like 5 goals and Son to also have a great game. But that wasn't meant to be. Sheffield are a solid team. They know how to suffocate the game. They know how to make things difficult for their opponents. Hammer scored for Sheffield against run of play. It was a good goal. The keeper had no chance. Vicario looked angry. Spurs looked shocked. Sheffield United's keeper, Mr. Fotheringham, had a really brilliant game. He made 8 saves, and Sheffield really tried to keep Tottenham out. They did well for up to 90 minutes. They scored in the 90+8 and 90+10. Talk about heartbreak. Wolves and Sheffield have the same problem. They cannot endure the whole game. They cannot last the entirety of a game. They keep conceding late goals, and those late goals will add up and punish them if these teams end up in the relegation battle. Richarlison is back amongst the goals, and that is great for him. I spoke previously about how he was going to start seeing a psychologist to help him get through things. I don't know if he had time to see one, but he's already scored, so maybe now everything is fine. Kululevsky scored the winner. Now, from a fantasy perspective, this is a mess. Does this mean Richarlison will come back through the center? Will Son be pushed to the wing? Will Solomon play? Will he not play? What's going to happen with this lineup? Perisic and Richarlison had the assists for the game. Kululevsky had the 3 bonus points. Hammer had 2, and Fotheringham had 1. Fotheringham put a great fight. When speaking about goalkeepers who will concede but will make many saves, if that's the route you want to go, you should consider him. Moving on to what was probably the biggest disappointment of the weekend. Chelsea versus Bournemouth. Chelsea had 12 players missing. Chilwell did not start. Mudryk started. Mudryk looked dull, like a butter knife. This game was the first 0-0 of the season. Chelsea dominated possession, but couldn't score. Gallagher, Sterling and Jackson were the most dangerous. However, if you watched that team play, it was frustrating because they didn't seem to be connected. I'm not sure if it's because of the lack of players. However, losing 12 players is tough. However, they still had enough. They needed to take their chances. Although, having said that, even if I said those 3 were the most dangerous players, they weren't dangerous. It was like those little dogs behind a gate that just make noise. That's all they did, made noise. From an FPL perspective, I wouldn't blame you if you got rid of both Sterling and Nicholas Jackson. These were supposed to be the easy games. What will they do when the tough games come about? Semenyo didn't start, but Solanke and Billing were very dangerous for Bournemouth. When Kluivert came on, he was dangerous. He caused a lot of trouble. The keepers also played great. Let me not take anything away from them. Sanchez was man of the match. He really kept Bournemouth out of the game. You should look at the lineup of Chelsea and see the players they had on the bench. They've spent 1 billion, and Chilwell and Palmer were their best options coming off the bench, and that's all they could do. Bournemouth brought on Kluivert. That was a much better option than anything Chelsea had. It makes you wonder, what did they spend the money on? Sanchez had 3 bonus points, Kelly had 2, and Bournemouth keeper Neto had 2. The last game on Sunday was Everton versus Arsenal. Arsenal really struggled at Goodison Park. I had made an error. I thought this was a home game for Arsenal. I'm sorry, it was a home game for Everton. I don't know if it's an error. I don't know what happens, but this was not easy for Arsenal. Yes, they won eventually. It looked like a professional job, and this is a big hurdle for them. I believe this is more of a psychological victory than anything else, considering this is where they lost the league last season. Well, not exactly, but you know what I mean. Our golden boy Saka gave the assist for the only goal that Trossard scored in the game. Martinelli went down injured, and it should be something that you worry about. Everton, what can you say about Everton? Well, they've been bought, so maybe in January they can do something. Maybe fire the manager, get new players in. I'm not sure, but they just need to hang on until January in order to change their team in the way Newcastle did a few years ago. For those of you who stuck with Gabriel, congratulations, well done. I'm happy you got your clean sheet and the yellow card, but more of the clean sheet. Patience pays. For those of you who had Ramsdale, I'm sorry, that must have sucked. He had played 76 games or something like that, along with Gabriel, but then now the rotations have come in. Raya played and he kept the clean sheet. Trossard got the bonus of 3. Raya got 2. Zinchenko and White got 1 bonus point. The Nottingham Forest versus Burnley game has ended. It has ended 1-1. Hudson-Odoi scoring for Nottingham Forest and Amdouni scoring for Burnley. Awoniyi continues his trend of assisting or scoring for Nottingham Forest. Lyle Foster had the assist and he also seems to be on a good patch of form. If you guys ever have time, watch Koleosho playing. Koleosho. Watch him play. That man is a traditional winger. And by that I mean, he runs at you, he dribbles past you. He's going to try and defeat you. You just have to decide whether to bring him down or not. Montiel suffered World Cup winning Montiel was demolished. He got a look at, he had to be subbed early. It was, wow, he's a dangerous guy, that one. If I'm to guess, I will say Hudson-Odoi, Amduni, and either Foster or Awoniyi will get the bonus points. The average points for the week are 40 points. So if you did 41 and above, well done, you're above average. If not, don't worry, there's always next week. When it comes to looking at the top performers, when it comes to the keepers, Neto and Sanchez had 10-10, Raya had 8, Leno had 6, and Pope had 6. Looking at the defenders, Robertson had 11 for Liverpool, Botman had 9, Kelly from Bournemouth had 8, Ream had 8, Castagne had 8. Looking at midfielders, Bernardo had 13, Trossard had 11, Douglas Luiz had 10, Gross had 10, and Salah, Hammer, and Kulevski were tied with 10. The strikers weren't so great this time round. Alvarez was top with 9, Edouard second with 8, Pedro, Welbeck, Vinicius occupy the next 3 slots with 7 points. As you can see, it is a midfielders league. When it comes to our 38 weeks to go league, at number 1, we have Why Are You Running by Leon Mortier. He got 52 points and he has 336 points. 18 points ahead of number 2, Hans Gruber by Bonaji, who had 54 points and has 318 points. At number 3 is Alexander Mutune with Don't Bottle It This Year. He has 312 points, so just 6 behind Bonaji. And 1 point behind him is Mike Wow, 043 Boys, a new entrant this week. He has 72 points, and he was number 1 in terms of points earner, and he wasn't even close. So I'll see if I can manage to get a chat with him. At number 5 is Vic Nyadi with Vic City with 308 points. So you can see it's 10 points from number 2 to number 5. It's close up there. Leon still has an 18-point lead, but there's still many weeks left to go. At the bottom, Washira Gitahi has 202 points, and he is 24 points off number 20. Team Kubwa, 226, who is 20 points behind number 19. 246, who's behind number 18 by 1 point. So from number 19 to number 16, it's just 10 points as well. So there's a bit of a race up there happening, or rather down there. The top 5 averaged around 52, 54, 55 there. That's well above average. I also must acknowledge that these are not the final scores, because the table will be updated right after the game. Like, for example, for Why Are You Running, he has 2 players coming on which will give him 60 points. Outside that, it doesn't seem like there will be drastic changes to the table. And that's why I felt comfortable recording while the match was still going on. Especially now that it's ended 1-1, it won't affect much. Looking towards the next game week, it's going to be tricky because Europe is going to affect how the teams line up this weekend. Of course, there can be injuries as well. So if you haven't, for example, removed Nicholas Jackson yet, maybe just wait to see if the person you're replacing him with survives this European first few games. But also if you're just done, that's fine. When looking at Crystal Palace versus Fulham seem to have the better record of late, and so it should be an open game. However, if they play like they did against Luton, they should be done. I would think Edouard will score again. This is a kind of game where I'm leaning towards Crystal Palace. I just feel like they have a better chance this time round. When it comes to Luton versus Wolves, I think Wolves are the better team, but they just do not seem to be able to last 90 minutes. And if Luton outlast them, there's a chance for them to win. Wolves have been profligate in front of goal. If this does not change, they will be in big trouble. I think they will win, but let's see. Man City versus Nottingham Forest. This might be the first game where I am betting against. I will need to either score or assist. Mainly because I have Edison and I need him to keep a clean sheet. I can tell you for free, Haaland is going to be my captain unless he gets injured. I will not make any changes until Friday when I know how people are looking. When it comes to Brentford versus Everton, Mbomo is coming back into my team. Recent history has the matchup as an even split with 2 wins for each side and 2 draws, so it's really even. However, considering Everton's form, I will give the slight edge to Brentford, and I'm hoping for Mbomo to score a penalty or something like that. Maybe 1-0. Burnley versus Man United. If reports are to be believed, Burnley beat Manchester United 3-0 behind closed doors. There is a chance that can happen again. I honestly do not know what's wrong with Manchester United. They recently lost Aaron Bissaka, and so the defense is even going to be more shaky. Let's see if they can concentrate. They should be able to beat Burnley. But given their recent form, you just don't know. I, however, wouldn't encourage you to get rid of your Manchester United assets. Wait until Champions League happens. Let's see what Bayern does to them, and let's see if they suffer injuries or not. Spurs versus Arsenal. That will be a very good game. It should be high octane or very dull. You know how these highly anticipated games end up being a dud. Tottenham tend to win this game at home, and with Ange Ball, who knows? Arsenal have just defeated Everton, so they show they have the capability to defeat their previous bogey teams. And depending on how Europe goes, they should be able to make this game competitive. Martinelli got subbed in the 24th minute in the game against Everton. It seems to be a hamstring, and he will definitely miss Champions League and this weekend. In a way that makes it easier for you to choose your teams. If you have Saka, just stay with him. If you have Martinelli, you might have to decide whether you want to bring on Saka if you don't already have him, or if you're going to move on to Son or somebody else. I can only predict that these two teams should be able to score against each other. Beyond that, I don't know. Brighton are playing Bournemouth. They are playing a game in Europe. This will be their first European campaign. It will be a test of balance and to see how they can play on 2 fronts. I would ordinarily suggest that it'll be a game that will go straight to Brighton, but teams like these that will be playing late on Thursday may not have enough time to recover. It may have a few knocks here and there. It's their maiden European outing, and let's see where their concentration levels are at. Bournemouth have attacking threats, and they will be dangerous. This might be a time to bet on Bournemouth to cause an upset. Chelsea play Aston Villa. They're missing 12 players, hoping that they gain some of these players back. I think Aston Villa should defeat them. Having said that, Aston Villa don't seem to be able to play against top 6 teams. Chelsea is nowhere near top 6 team, so maybe that's good, but maybe their reputation will help them more than anything in this kind of a matchup. Aston Villa also have Europe, so it'll be interesting to see what their squad rotation will be. That is the biggest fear with these teams, their squad rotations. Liverpool play West Ham. I believe Liverpool will defeat West Ham because Liverpool are just solid right now. West Ham will have Europe, as will Liverpool. So in theory, it should be a balanced game. Injuries will determine who has a stronger lineup come Sunday. Sheffield versus Newcastle. Sheffield are trouble. They're not easy to beat. Newcastle have Europe. They're playing AC Milan. They will be more focused on that game, and they may suffer. There will be an opportunity for Sheffield. to do some damage to them, cause an upset. Newcastle have already shown that they are going to rotate, so it's hard to know what squad will be playing on that day. Be careful with your assets. Isaac may play in Europe, but he may take this weekend off. So it may be Callum Wilson with Harvey Barnes and them. Basically, if you haven't already made moves, just be a little bit patient until Friday. There is no Friday game, so you don't have to worry about that. However, players may get injured. There may be rotations. So delay as much as possible before you make your decision, and it will help you. So please try to hold on to your players until Friday. I hope you have a wonderful week. Thank you for tuning in. Champions League is back, baby. Let's go. Bye-bye.